I'm really excited to introduce another piece of technology that we have around here. It's not one that we've been using very often recently. We simplified our menu in the spring as global events transpired, and now we're slowly starting to bring back some of our complexity and nuance. We love playing with flavors, we love playing with different grains. One of the things that has been largely requested lately is our multigrain loaf. It's the end of season right now. We're trying to use some of the things that we have around the bakery, exhaust some of our inventory before the new season begins. I have some beautiful purple barley. So this barley comes from Grain R&D. It's grown locally. This is an heirloom varietal of barley and it's called purple barley because of its color. So not all barley comes in this color. It's got really a rich, kind of naturally sweet flavor. And this is a mock mill. It's a stone mill. This is a modification. So we broke the little guard that goes over the chute. And so once I mill, it's going to start spraying the resulting milled items. And so I actually just put the mill with this little scooper, and the scooper is going to prevent a mess. I really want to get the wooden version, which is called the Pro. But when we first bought this, I got yelled at for spending $300 on a mill that no one knew how to use. So I bought what I could. This was the Mock Mill 200. So I'm going to give you first some instruction on how the mill works. The mill is two stones put together and they rub together, and anything that passes through is ground fine into a flour or into whatever fine particle you want. So I'm starting this, and can you hear that kind of clicking sound in the background? It's the stones coming together. You see how that just got more pronounced? So we're going to call that 1. This is sort of arbitrary, but this is the level at which both of the stones come together in this mill. This is really the finest setting that I would mill at, because those stones are together to the point that the stone itself is creating friction with the other stone, and you can hear it. So this is one of the most common mills that you can buy for your home. There's one smaller version below this, and then there is the wooden version above this, which is called the Pro. And I think it's Pro because those wooden components are less likely to deteriorate. Like our plastic hook just broke on this, and that's why we had a problem. But I'm not wanting to mill this into a flour. So if I run this through now, the result is very fine. It's a dust. It's a flour dust. I'm trying to get a little more. And that's not what I'm going for. So what I'm actually trying to do is I'm trying to build a multi-grain loaf, and for that loaf, I'm going to soak a variety of extra grains overnight to hydrate them and soften them, much like you would make like a grain salad, except I don't want the full berry. So barley is very similar to wheat. This is the seed berry, and the way that flour is made, whether it be from wheat or another grain, is that a portion of this berry is your flour. White flour is just the endosperm, the starchy portion, and it's generally more white. And so as you break this berry, you'll see that actually it has a lighter color on the inside. The outer coating is the bran. That's the part that traps moisture from getting in too early and germinating the berry, and the only other component's the germ. So the whole of the berry, if it's put together, is whole wheat, or in this case it would be whole barley. So this would be whole barley flour. If it was wheat, that would be whole wheat. Now, What's the difference between whole grain and whole wheat? Whole grain means that all three components, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm, are present, but are not necessarily present fully. So that means that we're sifting out some components in order to get the desired texture that we want. So we're now at a fine level 1. I have this knob here. If I loosen the knob, then I can move it back and forth without affecting the stones. But if I tighten the knob, now I can move the stone and unwind it from the other stone that's below it, which is fixed. And so I can make that thickness between the stones greater. And as a result, as the grains pass through, they're not going to mill as finely. They're going to mill more coarse. So if I go to, say, a level 10 and pass the grain through, this may be hard to see on the video, but you're going to be able to see that it's more gritty and coarser. It's not nearly as fine. And so if I want to make a coarser flour, that's what I would do. I don't want to make a flour at all. I actually want grains that are cracked. And what I'm doing by cracking them is when I'm soaking them, I'm allowing the water to get inside of the grain. I find that the grain soaks a lot better when it's been cracked, and those smaller pieces incorporate better and just have a better eatability at the end. So I'm not worried about this flour. It's going to get incorporated in my dough. It's fine. But I'm going to take this up to level 25. Now, you wonder what's level 25 when this goes 1 to 10? Well, I'm at level 10 right now. I'm going to loosen my knob. And so now I'm going to bring it back to the beginning. So I haven't moved the stone at all because I loosened it. I'm going to tighten it back down here. And now I'm going to go back to level 10. So now I've gone 1 to 10, and then I've gone 10 to 20. So now I'm at level 20. I hope you guys are with me. I'm going to loosen it again. And I'm going to go to level 5 now. So now I've gone from 1, which was when the two stones touched, all the way to 25. I realize that this is somewhat arbitrary, but it's about as precise as I've been able to find with this mill. So what you can do is you can find out the exact level that you want for the grain that you're blending or milling, and that way you can build an instruction set around it and say, okay, well, for cracking barley, I want to crack at level 25. I can pass that information on to my crew and say, please crack barley to level 25 for me for this mix, and they know what I'm talking about. Different grains will mill differently. All grains have different amounts of oils and moisture in them, so not everything is suitable for this mill. For instance, you can't mill flax on this mill. If you try, the flax is going to gunk up between the stones because it's so much oil. You need a different type of mill for flax. It's probably better just to use a coffee grinder, to be honest. So what I'm going to do is fill this hopper now and start milling. So the coarser the mill, the faster it's going to happen. The finer the mill, the slower it's going to happen. So this is going to go fast. It's not even really worth me walking away from it because my hopper is already dropping down to low levels. If I was going to mill through fine, I can fill the hopper and walk away for minutes at a time and build it into my workflow. You can see the result is that barley is cracked, but it still looks more like grains than it does like flour at this level. So this is a 25. That grain is very much heating through the mill. It's a lot warmer coming out. And that's an interesting thing to think about because it's one of the discussions out there in milling, the effects of heating up grain as it's going through the milling process. In larger quantities, the heating can be more dramatic, and you can get to the point that you're actually cooking the flour, which can have a really big effect on the final flour quality. So it's an important discussion, and I don't really want to get into the specifics because I'm still conflicted on some of that information. I've heard conflicting information from different millers. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to save some of that discussion for when we go visit the mill. What I really want to learn from them is maybe they can help compare and contrast the temperature on steel roller milling versus stone ground flour milling, and how they mitigate some of that in their processes. Up until the time that you get yourself a mill like this one, you are at the mercy of whatever flour you can source. If you make multigrain, you're at the mercy of grains that are already small enough or already broken apart enough that they're going to play with water really well. Once you get a mill, the amount of nuance that you can create it goes up incredibly. So one of the things that our bread has in it is malted wheat. It's malted white Sonora. How did malted white Sonora end up in our bread in the first place? Well, it was through this mill. So we were buying regular flour from our mill, and one day I was over there. In fact, I was visiting the same folks that you're going to see in future videos during wheat harvest. I didn't go to the mill. I went over to the grain cleaning side. They're farmers, they clean the grain, they get the grain ready, and he was going on about this new grain that he was making. It was malted wheat, and it's malted white Sonora in particular, which is a heritage grain. So he just gave me some grain to try, and I wanted to make a bowl of cereal with it. It was so sweet and nice. So immediately I asked him for a 50-pound bag, and I bought one. I brought it home, and that's when I bought the mill. So a week later, the mill arrived. I had to explain myself to Amanda. And ever since that day, malted white Sonora has been a part of our formula. Now the mill actually produces our malted white Sonora flour for us because we tested it first. And now that we buy enough of it, it makes sense for them to make it. But keep in mind, they're not going to make something for us at a 50-pound increment. So by having this mill and doing it ourselves at first, we were actually able to get nuance into our formulas that otherwise we wouldn't have. All right, so this is all done now. You can see that it didn't take an exceptionally long period of time. I had about a full 8-quart, and I'm gonna scoop some of this stuff that's still on the sanitized table and put it in. I guess my hopper modification worked almost. Certainly less of a mess than I would have had otherwise. So now I have all of this cracked grain, and I can combine it with other grains that I already have to make multigrain tomorrow.